Hello everybody, welcome back to Mordor Depths of Dejenol Tips and Tricks. Today, instead of going into the dungeon, I'm just going to sit in town and talk about some of the more interesting items, the potions and scrolls of the game. Now I say interesting because they can be quite helpful, but they also a lot of times just clog up your inventory or aren't used, and they aren't worth too much either. I mean, we're not talking about the stat boosting potions here, we're talking about all the other potions and all the other scrolls. Potions, a lot of them, cast helpful spells on you. Invisibility can cast Sight Veil, Potion of Sight casts See Invisible, Elven Potion is Resist Magic, Dragon's Water for Resist Fire, Health for Cure Disease, Curing for Cure Poison, a very common thing to mess up, at least for me. Flight for Feather Essence, Healing for Minor Heal. It's not a great heal, but it's like 10 points. It's still worth something. Movement for Resist Paralysis, and the weirdly named ones. Netamu for Mental Resistance, Nevamu for Electric Resistance, Nasamu for Resist Acidity, Nagamu for Resist Stoning, and Nemamu for Resist Draining. Netamu, Nevamu, Nasamu, Nagamu, Nemamu. Try saying that 5 times fast. Then you have the Potion of Youth, which lowers your age by 1 and lowers your constitution by 1. This is important as your characters grow older because if a raise fails, the chance of complications is relative to your age compared to your maximum age, like the percentage of your maximum age your character is. Complications are one of the biggest ways to screw over a character because it will set all your stats down very low, often to their minimums. Yeah, complications are bad. Art of Being is an interesting potion that increases all your stats, but takes a few levels to use already. So it's not fantastic for legacy characters just starting into the OLR, because you need to boost your constitution to the max before that. But it's still a very, very, very useful potion and is extremely, extremely valuable. Elixir of Restoration. Cast Restoration at a spell level of 255. Say hello to one of the strongest healing items in the game. It's a one-use potion, but it can put you back to full even after being down deep in the dungeon. It heals several hundred hit points. First monster that drops it is in level 5, I believe. I believe it's the Twisted Elf. Drops these fairly often. There are also some other potions that I don't have, like Dragon's Blood, which lowers your age by 10. Yeah, some pretty important stuff. Anyway, a lot of these lower level potions are, simply put, there to supplement you if you don't have a sorcerer. If you don't have the ability to cast these resistances or helpful spells, or just want to save on spell points, pick up these potions for, a couple thousand gold. You can have a couple runs worth of resistances. Also, pretty good to keep track of if you ever hit a blackout trap or an extinguish square and then don't have enough spell points to recast all your stuff. You can drink a few potions. Yeah. Potions just supplement your abilities of your spellcasters. It's pretty much it. Pretty useful, though, now I think about it. Now we get into scrolls. Scroll of Spells. Add spell points just for that run. It's a way to restore your spell points, much like healing restores your hits. Separated into good, neutral, evil. Pretty expensive, but it's worth it. Another thing that I should talk about, though, is that potions and scrolls, at least for the most part, can stack. Which means you take 2 of them into the combine item section. You say what items you want to combine. Say they have to be the same type, so Scroll of Negron, if you have 2 of those and want to combine them. Then you combine them down to 1 slot. This is helpful because it saves on inventory slots and allows you to keep more in one slot. And if you if you have buffers, then you don't have to keep constantly resetting the buffers too. That's also helpful. It's also helpful if it's something like a scroll of spells or a stat boosting potion, because if you combine them and then realign them, you only pay the realignment cost for one, as opposed to paying the realignment cost for upwards of like five or something. Very useful money save there when you don't have the right alignment and need to realign. It's dangerous, however, because if something like a slime trap hits it, or a thief hits it, or a slime monster hits it and destroys the item, well, they destroy all the stacks. So be careful with how big of stacks you make, because you can easily lose them if you're not careful. Scrolls. Whereas potions, supplement your need for healers or sorcerers, scrolls supplement your need for mages. They cast charm spells. Nagrun casts Charm Giant. Oh, or banish spells, I guess. Sumse casts Banish Devil. Ketron casts Charm Dragon. Nimian casts Dominate Demon. That's a Charm Demon spell. Hathron casts Charm Monster, which you would think works on everything, but no, it only works on reptiles. Goron casts Charm Animal. Kanji casts Charm Insect, and these are all at the caster's spell level. In other words, whatever stats, whatever the highest spell level for your guilds that you have, whether or not that's a spellcasting guild. It's just half your level. So this is really important because you don't have to have a mage of level whatever. You just have whatever your highest spell level to be whatever. Could just be your current spell level. Malar casts Charm Elemental. Norgus Charm Humanoid. Nantasu casts Dominate Devil. Control casts Control. Control is useful to increase the bind level of your companions. So if you're using these other scrolls to charm monsters, you can use a scroll of Control to increase their bind level so they're less likely to run away. Doesn't work too high, but what it is. And then the Scroll of Shaital. Casts Shaital at spell level 45. I've asked, what is Shaital? A very good question. There's no spell called Shaital in the spellbook for the game. Apparently, it's just a damaging spell. It damages like a couple groups a month, it's like 2 or 3 groups, 4 monsters each, deals like 20 to 40 or 40 to 60 damage. I forget how much it does. These things are very rare, they're worth a lot of money, and they're just weird. Scroll of Shaital is just so weird. As far as the tomes go, you have your stat boosting tomes. You have Tome of Lies, which gives -1 intelligence and wisdom. Why is this not a cursed item, you ask? Interesting point. In game design, if you use an oppositely aligned tome, you will take negative of whatever that tome would give you. So if I was good and used an evil tome of leadership, I would lose 1 point of charisma instead of gain it. However, if you're neutral, you do not lose points for using good and evil tomes. You just don't get any benefit. Tome of Lies, however, you do not gain intelligence and wisdom if you're good for using an evil Tome of Lies, for instance. You still lose no matter what alignment you are. This is important in game design because it prevents neutral characters from just reading every tome they find without having to sell them first. Because that would be a huge bonus of gold if you didn't have to read everything. If you didn't have to identify everything, you could just read it. Tome of Lies is there just to make sure that you're not trying to game the system with an early character. or that if you are, that you're gonna have a chance of being punished. Tome of Binding casts Restrain, which is a little more powerful than Control. Has a couple uses on there. Caster spell level. Tome of Spells is like a Scroll of Spells, but 4 times as good. Adds 200 spell points. These things are also very rare. And then you have Dust of Healing, cast Heal. Dust of Life casts Raise Dead. Crystal of Healing casts Minor Heal at the same level as Potions of Healing, but comes in stacks of like 12 and 15 instead of just stacks of 3 or 4. So, I mean, it's a good way of saving inventory space. Prism of Sanctuary casts Sanctuary. It's quite rare and is often quested for. Keep these in the store or your bank. Sanctuary is a spell which will instantly teleport you back to the location you set as your sanctuary, with Set Sanctuary, a spell that everyone has at level 1, no matter what, at 1 spell point. But the problem is that it will always age you 1 year every time you use it. Prism of Sanctuary, pretty dangerous. Good emergency button, though, if you get teleported to the very bottom of the dungeon and have no idea where you are. Gem of Healing casts Heal at spell level 50. It's quite good. For the rods, you have Rod of Entrapment. Now, rods are not class restricted for the most part, but oftentimes are only allowed by a couple guilds, which means you have to be at least that level in that guild in order to use the rod, but then you can train in whatever other guild you want and still be able to use it. Rod of Entrapment casts Soul Entrapment. Rod of Healing casts Heal at spell level of 60. Freezing casts Hailstorm. Lightning casts Lightning Bolt. Darkness casts Summon Shade. And these are all at spell level of 60. So they're all pretty powerful mid-game blasting tools. Rod of Ultimate Power is a unique one. It casts Word of Death at a spell level of 2. Word of Death affects, I think it's 14 monsters in 4 groups. 4 groups of 14 monsters each. And is basically the strongest magic spell in the game. It's only learned by Wizard and Healer. And it takes an inordinate amount of spell points to use. Now, the Rod of Ultimate Power is one of the rods that is class restricted, but has very low level requirements for it. But since it only casts at a spell level of 2, it's extremely weak. Will only do like 20-ish damage. So what's the purpose of the Rod of Ultimate Power? Clearing out massive hordes of tiny enemies. If you are relying on physical attacks, you're going to know that you don't hit everything. Like, slaves are the first easy example of just a mass of enemies that are weak. But there are masses of enemies that are very highly attack-focused that only have like 1 or 2 hit points. They're deeper in the dungeon. Zebrats, piranhas. The Rod of Ultimate Power is a way of saying, screw you, you're all dead, and I'm still alive. Provided you can get it off in time. That's really its most important and maybe only use. But hey, it's still the Rod of Ultimate Power. Who wouldn't want that? You will also have spheres and cubes if you get late enough into the dungeon, which cast spells that are even stronger at even higher levels. But they're similar to rods in the sense that, you get to this level, you get to use the rod, and then you have these spells with a number of casts until they run out that don't cost spell points. And they're pretty high casting levels, so that's pretty good. For stones, you have the Glowing Rock, which casts Shock at spell level 15. It's the first rock that you can find. It's not that good. Shock at spell level 15 affects 2 groups of 2 monsters and does like 15 damage. But it's still It's a spell for a low-level character who might only be a warrior. So it can be useful relatively, but oftentimes it's just not worth it. Lodestone gives a couple defense points, so it's useful to equip no matter what. And it casts Soul Search. Soul Search is useful for if you lose a party member to like a teleport trap and want to find him, cast Soul Search. It'll give you directions to him. It's like using the Seer in town, but it's free. Scarab of Protection is interesting because it's a stone that's not class restricted, but has a decently high level requirement. It gives you 3 defense points and has Protect on it always. So basically, if you hit like Nomad 38, equip a Stone of Protection, you never have to worry about Protect again. It's pretty nice, but it's pretty expensive and fairly rare. Flamestone. 3 attack, 6 defense. Pretty good stats for a rock. Unfortunately, it's a high guild requirement and only has 4 charges of resist fire instead of offering fire resistance as an item. Technically, the spell's 5% better, but still it's useful for its equipped stats alone. Mithril Ore does nothing. Any questions? Bells of Qualish is a sphere that casts Resurrect. If you ever are worried that your healer's gonna die, carry some Bells of Qualish on someone who's not your healer. Bada bing, bada boom, you can raise them. Orb of Life Domination. Now this is important. Monsters can join you, or you can charm monsters, but those monsters will want to run away eventually. Orb of Life Domination binds them to you. They will never run, they will never flee. Even if they joined you on their own will, they won't be able to run away. The only time they'll die, like they'll leave, is if they die and you drop their body or can't carry their body. I wonder if there's a setting to set it so you don't auto carry if you're already carrying something. Because that's really annoying when it's like, okay, I'm carrying the minion I want. I have another minion because I'm a mage. That minion dies. Oh, I picked them up now. I wonder if there's a way to turn that off. But I haven't seen it, if there is. Spheres, you'll notice, cast spells at a higher level. 90, 105, 105, Soul Entrapment at 105, but they require much higher guild levels than rods. Spheres are still very useful. They have 25 casts at a spell level of 105. They're actually pretty useful for lower down in the dungeon, just for blasting some spells out without costing spell points. Key of Opening. The sad thing about a Key of Opening is that you can't combine it because it's an artifact. But it casts Charm of Opening. It's not class restricted. You can use it at Nomad 6. And it only costs 12 intelligence, 12 dex to equip. This is, if you don't have a thief, the Key of Opening is the next best thing. It allows you to open that one magically locked chest. And then after you use it, you can still sell it at the store for full price. Like I said, though, the bad thing is that you cannot combine them, so you can't have a stack of Keys of Opening. Each one will take its own inventory slot. As such, it's highly impractical to try and carry several keys, but it's good to have maybe one around if you end up without spell points and really want to open a particular magical lock chest. Dallin's Smile is an artifact that does nothing. Any questions? It's commonly quested for at decently low to mid levels. Gremlins, I think, carry Dallin's items for some reason. I don't know why. It's an artifact that does nothing. Any questions? Unicorn Horn is a useful artifact. Casts Cure Poison with like 15 to 20 charges. Has Disease Resist, has Poison Resist, has 3 defense points. Not class restricted. Once you're Nomad 25, unless you have a better artifact, you should probably always have a Unicorn Horn equipped if you can afford one. It's just a solid item. Slaver's Whip, cast Charm Humanoid. If you don't want the Unicorn Horns bonuses, and instead want to have a couple casts of Charm Humanoid at a fairly low but reasonable spell level, Slaver's Whip is alright. Pretty good for like the goblins on floor 3, for instance. Morden Glyph can be dropped by Medusa. It's an artifact, but gives attack defense 3, and casts Draining Touch at a spell level of 150 with 2 charges. Very good, very strong. 2 charges. It's a panic button item. Need I say more? And it's class restricted, so you need to be a pretty high level to use it anyway. Medusa's Head is an item the store refuses to stock. It's a miscellaneous item that casts Flesh to Stone at spell level 100 one time. That's it. It's powerful because Flesh to Stone is a powerful spell, but you don't really need Flesh to Stone majority of the time because it only affects like one monster in one group, or it's like 2 monsters in one group. And Draining Touch actually does more damage unless they're resistant to magic and not resistant to stoning. But Medusa's Head will drop from Medusa and can be sold for about 3 million gold, and because the store doesn't stock it, its value never decreases. So Medusa's Head can be pretty nice. Just extra gold. Or to carry around as a panic button. And outside of that, like I said, there are cubes that exist deep in the dungeon, which cast spells for you. But I think that's pretty much it for consumables and other items. Rings. They're rings. You can get spellcasting rings from the Twisted Elf or below. Other items are just equipment, pretty much. They have different stats, of course, but for the most part, it's just equipment. Anyway, that's been a tour through the consumables in the shop. At least the ones that I have right now. Again, I haven't been down to level 15 and gotten Dragon's Blood and everything. But that's the idea of the consumables in the shop. A lot of low-level ones that can supplement your need for a mage or sorcerer. Some mid-level ones which supplement your mage or sorcerer for their spell points. And some high-level ones which do the same. Anyway, thanks for watching. I've been Mithril Zenith, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Enjoyed plunging the depths of Mordor, depths of Dejenol. If you have any ideas for particular episodes you would like to see, particular things you want tips and tricks on, let me know in the comments below. Till then, have a wonderful day. Thanks everybody, Mithril Zenith signing out.